We are back. Contractor's Corner. We're here with Jay Carter and myself, Johnny Vecchio. Today we're going to be talking about mastering job site safety. Not a long one, but
No.
there's a few things here to discuss. Actually, we were sharing stories a little bit before we went live here, Jay, and I don't want to cause any more traumas in your mind than I need to. So you don't want to share any of your stories, but I have one interesting one, and it caused us to change the way we send guys out to job sites. We always send them in twos now, because one of my guys, Owen, we found him stuck under a stack of drywall for about a
Mm.
half hour. And the one time, Jay, the one time he doesn't have a cell phone on him, and I gave him shit about this all the time. He was always screwing around with his cell phone. But the one time he didn't have one on him, he wasn't able to call for help. And God forbid he was there by himself. What would have happened? Right? It
Right.
could have been the next day before he was found. But I thought it'd be kind of fun to start with that story and how things can change on the job site and how protocols and procedures are important. I know, Jay, you have a few things to contribute to that.
Yeah, for sure. So, I'm a roofer, so safety is a big, big deal for us. But I'd like to maybe talk a little bit about the culture around safety. I think that's really important.
I like that.
Because here's a couple of ways to look at it. Number one is accidents are expensive. They are traumatic. They cause big big damage to your business, your reputation. It affects just about every square inch of your business when they do happen, and if they do happen, usually they are preventable. I come from an old school training where again safety wasn't the priority, but I have definitely changed. After a couple of bad experiences, and just seeing the trauma that it causes. Again, I've seen guys get hurt and be out of work for a long period of time, and it's something, again, I had to change my mindset around because I'm the leader of the band.
Yeah.
If I wasn't, making safety a priority, not only is it negligent on my business's behalf, but it says something to the people that work with you. It says that you don't give a shit about them, right? And I think that's a line you don't want to ever cross. I don't think I think a lot of owners do it inadvertently, just because they don't know any better. They don't respect safety the way they should. And probably one of the most enlightening things that I've had happen in the world of safety is I hired a safety consultant that came in and pointed out
Oh,
all of the areas of my business that were high risk and how I was putting my guys at risk and not even knowing it, like not intentionally, but because I just didn't know any better, right? And it was shocking to say the least. And again, as we started to really adapt more of a safety culture, um, I noticed a lot of changes in other areas of my business. So things like employee turnover improved. Other areas of with customers. We've seen a lot more repeat business where safety. The fact that we took the safety so seriously was brought up and it was appreciated. And again, it was foreign to me, and definitely
oh,
during my roofing career, and I had a very serious accident. That's actually what caused me to really think long and hard about where my business was going. And at the end of the day, we all have to take it more seriously than we are. And I can say that probably 90% of contractors have room to improve. Now, here's the other thing that I see a lot, and it should be thought about. It's just because you've had a good track record with safety, just because you are think you're doing the right things, doesn't mean you can't continuously improve.
right.
And I think we need to take that mindset into just about everything that we do or implement. If it's valuable, and again, taking it as serious as hiring a consultant, having, I thought my safety was in line. Like, again, all my guys were trained, they went to courses, but that's not real true safety. Safety goes beyond just meeting
It does.
the requirements. It goes beyond that. It goes, and it gets into your core values, right? Like at the end of the day, like Look around at all of your guys, look them straight in the eye. If one of them were to get hurt on the job and be disabled for the rest of their lives, how would that affect you? How would that change you? Or, is that something that's necessary? Is there something you can do to take these things seriously? Because again, if you care about your employees and you care about your staff and you want to have a good company culture, how can you have that conversation without having safety involved? It's just, and I think it's taken, I don't think it's taken as seriously as it needs to. I think that again, it has value to it. If you want to look at it from a business only perspective, like, put all the culture things and, those things aside for a second, let's look at the actual dollars and cents behind it. I mean, safety pays. And there's no doubt about it. One accident, I mean, it can devastate your business financially from, all types of, different angles, but more so than that, how many customers does it cost you? How many people look at your operation and go, I don't want these guys around. I mean, a lot of common people
That's
know
interesting.
the difference, right? And, so again, I think that, some companies I think, do safety because it's mandatory, but if they did it, they wouldn't. You know what I'm saying? So that's a mindset that needs to shift. And again, making the investment, well worth it. I mean, I can't express to it enough. But from a business, like pure dollars and cents point of view, probably the best, 20 grand that I spent, to get somebody professional in that just knew what they were doing, took care of all of the, the areas where, I mean, again, I wasn't required by law to do, but we did anyways, and that we've incorporated, like the toolbox talks and, other things that matter, because it sends a message to your team. It sends a message to your customers. It sends a message, to your culture, right? And again, at the end of the day, it's a moral thing, right? I can't just throw people out on a job site and hope for the best. And, I think the accountability for when an accident happens will always fall on the owner's shoulders.
Agreed.
Right?
And we all take these type of risks. So that our guys on the job site are constantly taking what looks like on the surface small risks, but they're actually huge. And like, let's face it, a contractor's greatest fear is that their body gives up on them before they get a chance to retire. Right. And when it comes to safety, that can happen instantaneously, and we've seen it time and time again. I don't think I've ever really looked at it in the way that you pitched it, as a professional, how it looks to your client, and actually, getting business and respect out of it. I've looked at it, obviously, of showing your crews that you care. That much is obvious. And then beyond that, the paperwork is absolutely insane if something were to happen. But that aside, right, just the ethics of it, the morality of it, and the fact that we know that people are taking small risks, leaning over ladders, doing all sorts of things. And not every trade is as obvious as it is in your trade, Jay. Right. You guys are on the roof, right? My guys are on the floor. They're installing tile, and you would think that there's very few safety concerns, but there's not. It's constant. And I catch myself doing it all the time too.
Absolutely. Well, and I think, again, coming back to when I was on the tools, a lot of that stuck with me further into business than I should have allowed it. Because again, when you take a loose approach to safety, where you're just doing the bare minimum, you're just doing, what the ministry tells you to, right. And really it was just out of pure ignorance, to be honest with you. It was that I didn't know any better. Right. And, I'll give you a good example. When they came in, they looked at our shop, and, they found like 32 places where, serious accidents, like cuts, all these kind of, and I was just like blown away. Like, these were just out in the open, obvious 32 safety infractions that I had.
So easy to overlook, man.
Right. And they weren't things that, like, again, no one would ever, like, the ministry would never come to our shop. They weren't things that I had to do. Right? It were things that I chose to do and that I invested in because it mattered to me, right? And it mattered to me because I had an accident. I've had guys have accidents on our projects. I've seen a lot of accidents. So, besides my own and, actually, witnessing, somebody, becoming a quadriplegic in front of my eyes was, a big wake-up call to...
That's terrifying.
It is absolutely terrifying. Crap. Right. and it happens so quickly, so fast. Like, again, I always think about those kind of situations, and I'm going, well, just like systems, just like things in your business, right? We all know, managing our financing and having cash flow projections and all these things are important, but they get neglected, right? And then when the shit hits the fan, we're stuck to really take the brunt of it, right? And things are way worse at that point. The key here is that accidents are totally preventable if you invest your time into it. It has, just like everything else, if you invest your time into managing your finances properly, if you invest your time
Right.
into anywhere else in your business, it has an ROI to it if you want to look at it from that perspective. But again, in terms of ROI for yourself, so you can go to sleep at night knowing that you've done everything you possibly can. And again, I'm in a high, in a dangerous, most dangerous of all the trades.
It's very clear.
Right. So, but take that note and pass it down, right? Like, again, carpenters, like, you put anybody, on a construction site, and they're all equally at risk. I mean,
Yeah.
I watched a framer that wasn't even working on the roof, that was going through the house, have a big pile of bundles fall on his head because he walked out at the wrong time, right? Now, how is that preventable?
There's the freak accidents, and you're
Right.
right. Like being
Totally
like,
preventable, though. 100%
right,
preventable, right?
right. And
All
there's a
it
few
takes
things that
is
can be done.
right. And then again, all it takes is guys to start the conversation, because, like, let's be honest, like, people in general, if they're around a culture of people that are taking safety seriously, they take safety seriously, right? When you bring apprentice and you bring young people into the market, which, I mean, we're all trying to do, and you set the standard of, we don't care about safety, guess what? I mean,
Right.
again, this goes all the way down the line. When you set the standard that, the safety is important to us and we take it seriously, lo and behold, they take it seriously. It's not as hard to implement as other things, because people want to go home. They want to go home safe. And it doesn't cost more money to be safe. Like, that's
Yeah.
the illusion too, right? Like, you're not actually getting more done faster either. So again, in a lot of settings, in a lot of situations, I mean, guys cut corners to go faster maybe, but I don't buy that one. I buy it as being laziness, right? And neglect.
It's
So,
true. It's true.
right.
Just as a like talking about solutions here, I'll just show
Mm.
you guys. This is my policies and safety.
Yep.
This binder goes to every new hire,
Mm-hmm.
and one on each job site. Has MSDS sheets. It has
Right.
all the necessary forms, protocols, procedures, emergency numbers. When your staff sees this, they know
Mm-hmm.
you take it seriously. When the site supers and management on site see this, they know you take safety seriously. And it's not things don't
Mm-hmm.
slip through your fingers. This is low hanging fruit.
Yeah,
This is the
absolutely.
easiest thing to do, is to arm your site with the information that they require in case of an emergency actually takes place.
Right. One, to take that one step further, again, being that we're in safety, we do toolbox talks. Most guys probably know what those are, but those
Yep.
are 15-minute conversations where that book actually gets brought to life, right? Where we're
Yes.
discussing specific things, specific hazards that are very, very, direct to what we do. And again, we created lesson plans with them. So we have 15-minute lessons plans, because most people won't open up the safety, the safety manual and ever look at it. I mean,
No,
I had them a few times where they sat under the seat of the van and they
we
sat
all
there for
know that's
years,
what
right?
happens to them,
Right.
but they're there. They're there.
They're there.
Right?
They're there. But again, when you want to take that to the, when you want to really build it into the culture,
Yeah.
again, what we do is those safety toolbox talks on our Monday morning meetings. Again, it's brought up, it's discussed, they sign off on it. So that, again, you're not missing guys not comprehending things, right? Because in my eyes, every accident is preventable, and everyone has a responsibility to stop someone doing something unsafe.
Right. And this is the
Right.
due diligence liability side, but also the putting it into
Mm-hmm.
practice. And you're right,
Yep.
having meetings around this booklet,
Right.
that means everything, because that actually puts it into practice, right? And it's constantly on the top of mind. So it's not at the bottom of a set of drawings,
Right.
if you're lucky.
Well, and you want to get buy-in for it, right? So, I mean, one of the most important things is to get your team to buy in on the idea and the concept of safety, right? Because
Right.
again, you can't be there to babysit them every moment, every second of the day. Most companies can't afford to hire a safety officer or consultant. And therefore, like, what ends up taking the back seat? Just like the things need to be addressed and that are important don't ever get that attention, right? And I think if guys realize how easy it is to actually build a culture of safety and how more retention and how more attractive you are to top talent, they would probably take it a bit more seriously, right? And it doesn't take much. It's taking the manuals we are all required to have, most of us,
Right.
and just making it a practice of bringing the topics up, making it a place where safety gets discussed, making it a place where, at bare minimum, right? How much harder is that? Like, we're all meeting with our guys, going over their gear, right? Having inspections of the gear, having inspections of your trucks, like those things, again, from a maintenance perspective, like they have value to them and return, that, you will see, over and over again once you start to practice it. What's the cost of one accident? What's the cost of, one truck down? What's the cost of, like, start adding those costs up and you'll realize that it's much easier to do it this way than it is to do it the other, right?
It's important that we talk about it. I'll be honest with you. When we first
Yeah.
started discussing talking about safety, in my mind, I was thinking, what does this have to do with the Contractor AI message in general?
Yeah.
But as you talk about it, it all ties in.
Mm-hmm.
It's obviously a core part of it, and everything falls apart if there's one incident. It's not a matter of if; it's most of the time a matter of when, that we have
Right.
these protocols in place, and the message is
Well, you
clear
can't
in the
scale.
culture.
You cannot scale your construction business. If you're in the construction or home services, you cannot scale it without having a safety plan. Like, I just put it into perspective. Like, again, if you have a higher frequency of, let's say, 4% than the average market, that still basically guarantees you that you're going to have 2 to 3 accidents a year, right?
We talked about risk management. We
Right.
talked about risk management before, and this is a big part of it.
And it's huge. And again, it's something that your guys will buy into more than, your time clock system. Like, it's bizarre, but again, at the end of the day, you want to set the tone for a company that appreciates their people, appreciates, their safety. I know of people that won't work for companies that have a bad safety record, right? Like, I know of, like,
Interesting.
where, and I think it's becoming more and more important, especially for the millennials down. Again, you remember that their requirements are big time different. Like, I think, where companies need to kind of wake up a bit is understanding that millennials down expect to be trained. Whereas the baby boomers and Gen Xers and stuff that, came from my generation, they didn't want any training. Like, there was no training to be, like, everything was a pain to get them to do. Whereas it's the opposite now, right? Is that there's an expectation there. And I mean, again, even if you feel like your business doesn't have a lot of safety risks, take a look around. Like, what can be improved? Is it putting, high vis vests on your guys? Like, showing up with
You're
making
right.
sure they have work boots, hard hats, all those things. What's that say to your customer who then sees it, right? What's that say to, anyone else that's doing business with you, or again, a third party? I mean, if you're a, sub trade on a job, right, and you're showing up and setting the tone for safety, believe it or not, that has an effect on the job site. And I'll tell you, big builders, general contractors, big, GCs, in these commercial, that's who they want and who they'll call back again. That is the standard in that commercial side as well, right? So again, don't neglect it. Don't sleep on it, and don't ever think that more can't be done. I think that's probably the best lesson that I can bring forward, is that even if, because our set it and forget it kind of mentality, things change, right? Have a look around, and it doesn't take much. It's a small commitment for a big return and a big reward at the end of the day.
For sure. And it's a responsibility. Like, everybody knows, like it's our job. The buck stops with us to get our people home at the end of the day.
Absolutely.